It was one of those brutally hot days when the sun felt like a personal enemy. I was in the middle of my usual grind, buried under a beat-up pickup truck at my small garage on the edge of town. Sweat dripped down my face as I tightened a stubborn bolt, wishing I could afford a decent air conditioner. Life hadn't been kind lately, but I wasn't one to complain. You fix what's broken, even if that's your own life. At least that's what I told myself. The sound of screeching brakes snapped me out of my thoughts. I slid out from under the truck, wiping my hands on a grease-stained rag. A sleek, silver sports car, easily worth more than my entire garage, had come to an abrupt halt outside. Smoke billowed from under its hood, and the driver, a young woman, stepped out, looking flustered and out of place against the dusty backdrop of my shop. Her heels clacked against the gravel as she approached, her designer sunglasses pushed up onto her head. She looked like someone who belonged in a penthouse, not stranded in a town this small. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carrying a mix of frustration and desperation. "My car broke down. Can you take a look at it?" I glanced at the car, then back at her. "That's not just any car. You're driving a machine that eats wallets for breakfast," I said with a smirk, trying to lighten the mood. "But yeah, I'll take a look." She seemed relieved, though she crossed her arms protectively. "Just, please be careful with it. It's important." I raised an eyebrow at her tone but didn't say anything. Popping the hood, I was greeted by a mess of overheated parts and what looked like a botched DIY repair attempt. I couldn't help but whistle. This isn't gonna be easy. Whoever touched this before didn't know what they were doing. "Can you fix it?" she asked, almost pleading. "Yeah," I replied, rolling up my sleeves. "But it's gonna take some time." For hours, I worked on that car, pouring every ounce of skill I had into repairing it. The woman, whose name I learned was Sophia, watched from a distance, occasionally checking her phone. Despite her polished appearance, there was a nervous energy about her, like she wasn't just worried about the car. When I finally got the engine running again, she looked at me with genuine gratitude. "Thank you. How much do I owe you?" I shook my head. "Don't worry about it. You were stranded, and I just did what needed to be done." Her eyes widened. "Are you serious? You spent hours on this?" "Yeah, well, I know what it's like to be stuck. Besides, you've probably had a rough enough day as it is." She stared at me for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then, to my surprise, she smiled. A real, genuine smile that lit up her face. "Thank you. I won't forget this." She handed me her business card. "If you ever need anything, call me." I glanced at the card. It didn't register immediately, but the name on it struck a chord. Sophia Hayes. It sounded familiar, though I couldn't place it. I shrugged and slipped it into my pocket, not thinking much of it at the time. The next morning, I was back at the garage, dealing with a customer who was arguing about the cost of a repair, when a black SUV pulled up. A man in a sharp suit stepped out, looking entirely out of place in my dusty little world. "Are you Liam Carter?" he asked. "Depends on who's asking," I replied cautiously. He handed me an envelope. "Ms. Hayes asked me to deliver this." I opened it and froze. Inside was a check, a big one, enough to cover all my debts and still have plenty left over. There was also a note. "For your kindness. Let me return the favor. Sophia." Couldn't believe it. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. But this was just the beginning. Sophia Hayes wasn't just any stranded motorist. She was one of the wealthiest women in the country. And she had plans for me. As I stood there, staring at the check, a million thoughts raced through my mind. Was this some kind of joke? People like Sophia Hayes didn't just hand out money like candy. But before I could process it all, the man in the suit cleared his throat, breaking my daze. "Ms. Hayes would like to meet with you," he said in a tone that left no room for negotiation. "If you're available, I'll take you to her now." My instinct was to decline. People like her didn't mix with people like me. People who spent their days covered in grease, fixing problems no one else cared about. But curiosity got the better of me. What could she possibly want with me? "Let me lock up," I said, grabbing my jacket. Moments later, I found myself in the back seat of the sleek SUV, heading toward the most unexpected meeting of my life. We arrived at an estate that looked like something out of a movie. The gates alone were taller than any building in my neighborhood, and the driveway seemed to stretch on forever. When we finally pulled up to the house, a mansion that could have been mistaken for a palace, my nerves hit an all-time high. Sophia met me at the entrance, her demeanor softer than when I'd first met her. She was dressed more casually this time, but she still radiated the kind of confidence and elegance that came from living a life far removed from mine. "Thank you for coming," she said, leading me into a spacious sitting room. Everything about the place screamed wealth, from the crystal chandelier overhead to the priceless art on the walls. I felt like a fish out of water. "I hope the check didn't overwhelm you," she said, offering a small smile. "Overwhelm might be an understatement," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why did you send it? I didn't fix your car expecting anything in return." "That's exactly why," she said, her expression serious. "People in my world don't do things without expecting something back. Your kindness." It reminded me of something I haven't felt in a long time. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I stayed quiet. She continued, her tone more businesslike now. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about knowing what it's like to be stuck. I want to help you, Liam. Not just with money, but with an opportunity." "An opportunity?" I echoed, skeptical. "I've been looking for someone I can trust to oversee a new project of mine. A charity initiative. It's designed to help people like you, people who just need a chance to turn their lives around. I think you'd be perfect for it." The words hit me like a freight train. Me? In charge of something like that? It sounded insane. "I don't know anything about running a charity," I admitted. "You didn't know anything about fixing my car either. But you did it. You have more potential than you realize, Liam. All I'm asking is that you think about it." That night I couldn't sleep. Sophia's words replayed in my mind. The check was already life-changing, but the opportunity she was offering felt even bigger. Almost too big. It was terrifying and exciting all at once. By morning, I'd made my decision. I wasn't about to let fear hold me back. I called the number on her card and said 3 words that would change everything. "I'm in." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Sophia introduced me to her team, a group of polished professionals who looked like they belonged on magazine covers. I was painfully aware of how out of place I looked in my thrift store button-down and scuffed boots, but Sophia never treated me like I didn't belong. She guided me through the basics, teaching me about fundraising, project management, and networking. It was overwhelming, but every time I doubted myself, she was there, reminding me why she'd chosen me in the first place. One night, after a particularly grueling day, we sat in her study, going over plans. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, unable to contain my curiosity any longer. She hesitated, her gaze distant. "Because I've been where you are," she said quietly. "Before all of this, I was just a girl trying to survive. Someone gave me a chance, and it changed my life. Now I want to do the same for others." As I got to know Sophia better, I began to see cracks in her polished facade. She wasn't just a billionaire with a heart of gold. She was a woman carrying the weight of a past she rarely spoke about. I noticed it in the way she avoided certain topics, the way her smile faltered when someone mentioned her family. One evening, after a successful fundraising event, I found her alone on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. "You okay?" I asked. She glanced at me, her expression unreadable. "Do you ever feel like no matter how much you achieve, it's never enough?" "All the time," I admitted. "But I think you've done more than enough. Look at all the lives you're changing." She gave a small, sad smile. "Sometimes it's not about what you do. It's about what you can't undo." Her words stayed with me, adding another layer of complexity to the woman who had already turned my life upside down. Just as things seemed to be falling into place, a scandal erupted. Someone leaked false accusations about Sophia's charity, claiming it was a front for money laundering. The media frenzy was relentless, and donors began pulling out. Sophia was devastated, but she refused to back down. "This isn't just about me," she said during a heated meeting. "It's about the people we're trying to help. We can't let them win." I found myself stepping into a role I never expected, her defender. I worked tirelessly to prove the accusations false, digging through records and rallying support from those who believed in her mission. It was exhausting, but it felt like I was finally doing something that mattered. The scandal hit harder than we expected, with news outlets running wild with the story. Sophia's name, once synonymous with success and generosity, was dragged through the mud. I could see the toll it was taking on her. The sleepless nights, the forced smiles in front of the cameras, the weight of accusations she didn't deserve. But Sophia wasn't the only one fighting. I couldn't stand by and watch her be torn apart for something she didn't do. While she worked to salvage the charity's reputation publicly, I took it upon myself to dig deeper into the source of the accusations. Someone had gone to great lengths to tarnish her name, and I was determined to find out who. Late one night, as I combed through old emails and financial records, I stumbled upon something strange. An unusually large donation from a company called Arcadia Holdings. The name didn't ring a bell, but the timing was suspicious. It was shortly before the accusations began, and the company had ties to a competitor of Sophia's. I brought it to her attention the next day. "Does Arcadia Holdings mean anything to you?" I asked, handing her the file. She froze, her face paling. "They're owned by the Montgomery family. We've butted heads before, but I never thought they'd stoop this low." "Looks like they did," I said grimly. "We need proof." With Sophia's permission, I started reaching out to contacts and piecing together Arcadia Holdings' connection to the scandal. What I found was infuriating. A trail of forged documents and false testimonies, all pointing back to the Montgomerys. It was clear they were trying to destroy Sophia's reputation to eliminate her as a competitor. Armed with this information, we confronted the Montgomerys' legal team. It wasn't an easy battle, they were powerful and ruthless, but we had the truth on our side. Sophia's resilience shone through, and her unwavering belief in justice inspired me to keep fighting, no matter how difficult it got. The tide finally began to turn when one of the Montgomerys' employees came forward as a whistleblower. They provided evidence that proved the accusations against Sophia were fabricated. It was a game changer. Sophia held a press conference, presenting the evidence to the public. I stood by her side as she faced the cameras, her voice steady and clear. "This isn't just about clearing my name," she said. "It's about standing up to those who think they can manipulate the truth for their own gain. I won't let them win." Her words resonated with people, and support for the charity began to flood back in. As the scandal faded, I realized how much I'd changed since meeting Sophia. The garage felt like a distant memory, though it would always be a part of me. Working with her had given me a sense of purpose I never knew I needed. One evening, as we wrapped up another successful fundraiser, Sophia pulled me aside. "You've done so much for me, Liam," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I don't think I can ever repay you." "You already have," I replied. "You gave me a chance when no one else would. That's more than enough." Months later, Sophia's charity was stronger than ever, and so was our partnership. She offered me a permanent role as her right-hand man, a position I gladly accepted. Together, we launched new initiatives that helped thousands of people, proving that even in the face of adversity, kindness and determination could triumph. Sophia's faith in me had changed my life, but more importantly, it had shown me the power of believing in others. And as I stood on the stage at our latest event, addressing a crowd of supporters, I couldn't help but think back to that hot day in my garage when a broken-down car brought us together. Despite the victory over the Montgomerys, Sophia seemed more guarded than ever. I noticed her retreating into herself when the cameras were gone and the crowds had dispersed. It was clear she was still carrying the weight of something unresolved. One evening, as we reviewed plans for an upcoming initiative, she suddenly asked, "Liam, do you ever feel like you don't deserve the good things that happen to you?" Her question caught me off guard. Sometimes, I admitted, but I try to remind myself that everyone's fighting battles no one else can see. We all deserve a little kindness. She nodded but didn't elaborate. I didn't press her, but I knew there was more to her story than she was letting on. A week later, Sophia's carefully controlled world was shaken when a man showed up at her office. He was older, with sharp features and a hard look in his eyes. Sophia's reaction was immediate. She went pale, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of her desk. "Liam, could you give us a moment?" she said, her voice strained. Reluctantly, I left the room, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. When I returned hours later, Sophia was gone, and her assistant told me she'd canceled all her appointments for the day. Over the next few days, Sophia avoided me, throwing herself into work and brushing off any questions about the man. Frustrated and worried, I decided to do some digging of my own. What I found was shocking. The man was Victor Hayes, Sophia's estranged father, a powerful businessman with a notorious reputation. I confronted her about it that evening. "Why didn't you tell me he was your father?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with pain. "Because he's not a part of my life anymore. He walked out on my family when I was a kid and left us with nothing. I had to claw my way up from the bottom because of him." "Then why is he back now?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "Because he wants something. He always does." Victor's return wasn't just a personal blow. It was a threat to everything Sophia had built. He demanded that she step down from her charity, claiming it was tarnishing the family name. If she didn't comply, he threatened to expose personal secrets that could ruin her reputation. Sophia was at a crossroads. Giving in to Victor's demands would mean abandoning the people she'd worked so hard to help, but defying him could cost her everything. "You don't have to face this alone," I told her one night as we discussed her options. "We'll find a way to fight back." She looked at me, her eyes filled with gratitude and determination. "Thank you, Liam. I don't know what I'd do without you." As Victor's threats escalated, we worked tirelessly to counter his influence. Sophia's legal team uncovered documents that showed Victor's own shady dealings, which we planned to use as leverage. Meanwhile, I reached out to key supporters, rallying them to stand by Sophia no matter what. The pressure was immense, but through it all, Sophia remained strong. "I've spent my whole life trying to prove that I'm more than his daughter," she said one night. "I won't let him take that away from me." Victor's next move was his most ruthless yet. He leaked a deeply personal story about Sophia's past, twisting the truth to make her appear untrustworthy. The media pounced, and for a moment, it felt like we were losing the battle. But Sophia refused to back down. She held a press conference, addressing the rumors head-on. "Yes, I've made mistakes," she said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "But those mistakes don't define me. What defines me is how I've chosen to rise above them and help others do the same." Her honesty struck a chord with people, and support for her only grew stronger. After Sophia's heartfelt press conference, the tide began to shift again. People admired her vulnerability, and donations to the charity surged. Still, Victor wasn't done. He doubled down, using his vast network of connections to try and dismantle her reputation. But this time, we weren't fighting alone. Sophia's supporters, both influential and everyday people, rallied behind her. Public figures spoke out in her favor, calling out Victor's underhanded tactics. Even a few of his former associates turned against him, fed up with his ruthless methods. It was a battle of wills, and Sophia's strength was contagious. Watching her stand tall in the face of such adversity inspired me in ways I hadn't expected. One night, while going through documents related to Victor, I uncovered something shocking. He had been siphoning money from one of his own companies to fund his campaign against Sophia. The discovery was damning, but exposing it wouldn't be easy. Victor was a master at covering his tracks, and if we made one wrong move, it could backfire. I showed the evidence to Sophia, and for the first time I saw her falter. "If we use this, he'll retaliate," she said. "And he won't just come after me. He'll come after everyone I care about. Then we'll make sure he can't," I replied firmly. "You've spent your life standing up for others. Let me stand up for you this time." She nodded, a flicker of hope returning to her eyes. "All right, let's do it." We worked tirelessly to build a case against Victor, gathering evidence and preparing for the inevitable fallout. Sophia's legal team was on high alert, and I coordinated with trusted allies to ensure we had support when the time came. As we neared the final stages of our plan, Sophia confided in me about her fears. "I've spent so long trying to prove that I'm not like him," she said. What if fighting him makes me just as ruthless? It won't, I assured her, because you're doing this to protect the people who believe in you, not for power or revenge. That's what sets you apart. The day we confronted Victor was one I'll never forget. In a private meeting arranged by our lawyers, we presented the evidence of his illegal activities. For the first time, I saw cracks in his confident facade. He tried to dismiss the accusations, but the weight of the proof was undeniable. You can walk away quietly, Sophia said, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. Or we can take this public and let the world see who you really are. Victor glared at her, but he knew he was cornered. After a long, tense silence, he finally relented. Fine, he spat. But don't think for a second that this is over. Sophia didn't flinch. It is for me. Victor's withdrawal marked the end of a long and grueling battle. The media frenzy died down, and Sophia's name was cleared. She was finally free to focus on her charity without the shadow of her father looming over her. But the victory was bittersweet. The ordeal had taken a toll on her, and she needed time to heal. I encouraged her to take a step back and focus on herself for a while. You've given so much to others, I said. Now it's time to take care of you. She smiled softly. You're right, but I couldn't have done any of this without you, Liam. Thank you. With Victor out of the picture, Sophia and I worked together to rebuild what had been damaged. The charity flourished, and we launched new initiatives to help people in need. The experience had brought us closer, and I found myself relying on her just as much as she relied on me. One day, as we celebrated the opening of a new community center, Sophia turned to me with a thoughtful expression. You know, I always thought I had to do everything on my own, she said. But you've shown me that it's okay to lean on someone else. You've done the same for me, I replied. We make a pretty good team. As Sophia healed from the ordeal with her father, she began to confront the scars of her past. She sought out the people she'd hurt along the way, offering apologies and making amends. It was a humbling process, but it brought her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. Watching her grow and change inspired me to do the same. I reached out to my estranged family, rebuilding bridges I thought were burned forever. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Months later, during a gala event for the charity, Sophia took the stage to announce a new initiative. She spoke about the importance of second chances and the power of kindness, her words resonating deeply with everyone in the room. As she concluded her speech, she turned to me with a smile. And none of this would have been possible without Liam Carter, the man who taught me that even in the darkest times, there's always a way forward. The applause was deafening, and I felt a lump in my throat as I joined her on stage. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Life didn't magically become perfect after everything we'd been through, but it was better. Sophia and I continued to work side by side, building a legacy that would outlast us both. The bond we'd formed was unshakable, built on trust, resilience, and a shared determination to make the world a better place. Looking back, I couldn't believe how much had changed since the day Sophia's car broke down outside my garage. What started as a simple act of kindness had turned into something extraordinary, a journey that transformed both our lives forever.